A series called Walking Dead. Have you heard of that series? Right? What is it about? No, it's about zombies, but can you infer some public administration principles by watching this series? Any administrative philosophy that you could, you know, interpret from this particular series? This series talks about a dystopian future, dystopian future. Dystopia is a state of anarchy. When your father would leave your house, maybe you were young, right? And probably he was the symbol of discipline and control. Most of us have fathers as the symbol of discipline and control. So when they leave the house, they go out. What do we do? The first thing is the feeling of freedom, right? Whenever a dystopian, that is anarchic system emerges, first thing happens is the fall of the government. The series truly depicts that what happens when there is absence of government. Absolute freedom creates a sense of anarchy. If you're free, I'm free, everyone is free, right? Who is there to take the responsibility? Are you able to understand what I'm saying? If everyone wants to enjoy their absolute freedom, right, there should be someone who should take the responsibility. Who will take the responsibility? No, you tell your father, I want my privacy, right? Your brother tells, I want my privacy, right? Everybody wants their privacy and space. Who will take the responsibility? So somebody has to sacrifice, no? That is what the concept of government is. Government is a system, right, which works on behalf of society to keep the society in order. Society per se, on its own, does not want to be in order. No? You feel society wants to be in order? Everybody wants to do their own thing. Nobody wants to accept laws, rules, regulations. Have you seen people following the red light? Just outside this warren, when you go to that red light, do you see people following these rules? None of them. Battery rickshaw, maybe an educated person is driving it, right? But a big BMW, so-called rich person driving it, right? Maybe a wagoner, a middle class official driving it. None of them want to stop at the red light. Why is that? Can you tell me? See, our classes will never be a linear class, right? It's not a monotony. It's not a monologue that we follow, right? We always want you to be a participant in this process. Only then you can learn. If your primary purpose is to copy the notes and go home, right? We'll not let you do that unless you understand. No, I'm not forcing that on you, right? I'm just telling you, right? This is what the method we follow. Because your understanding is vital for going beyond the traditional scoring pattern, right? So nobody wants to follow the law. Why? We all talk about law, we all talk about control, we all talk about, conformity, we all talk about ideals, morality. Why are we not willing to follow the law? See, students are in a hurry, they also don't want to follow the law. A UPSC aspirant who is carrying the Lakshmikant in his hand, right, and breaking the law right in front of, telling the rickshaw, okay, move. Why is that? This is a natural tendency, right? Humans have the natural instinct not to be governed by law. So to overcome this natural instinct, there is a need for a system of power. Somebody has to take this responsibility in their head. Who's that somebody? That is the government. So see, in this series, it's very clear. The first breakdown that takes place is of the governance. There is nobody to define what is right, what is wrong. So purely all of them go back to survival instinct, killing each other to survive themselves. So this is the first lesson we learn, that if there is no government, what will happen? There will be an anarchy in the society. And that is why the understanding or the study of political system and public administration becomes mandatory. Why knowledge? Obviously, we know that there is a system which works. Then why to study about this system? In nomadic times, right? Why were people following, or why people used to move from one place to another? All of you have come to study for UPSC, right? As per your own will, or somebody has forced you to. So be happy while you're learning, right? Don't be so serious. You have to be sincere, not serious, right? So let's say why we're moving from one place to another. Survival, okay, fine. Then food, correct, right? In search for food, right? Anything else? Yeah. Fear of nature. We were scared of nature. Why we were scared of nature? Because we did not know about it. Anything about which we don't know, we are scared of that. So whenever we organize, whenever we try to study something in an organized manner, one of the primary purpose of that study is to know that thing, to control that thing. So see, the study of government, politics, administration also revolve around the same idea, that how better we can understand the way we can govern our society, and to a large extent how we can control them who are governing us. Because those who will govern us will have power. Anybody having power can use or misuse both. Generally, when you have the power, you have the tendency to misuse the power. Now the question is why? Same, your natural instinct. People like to dominate others, right? That is quite carried through the historical genes, Anarchies were settled into monarchies, right? That is what happened. See, every time there is an urge for acquiring power, it is purely based on the instinct that we need to control others. So the study of public administration or study of politics and government was mostly driven by the idea that how power can be used and how power can be used for greater benefit of society, right? But obviously when people will acquire power, they will also have the tendency to misuse it. So when we will understand, right, how power works, why power will be used, how it can be controlled, only then probably we'll be able to utilize this power for the benefit of society. Now that is the prime reason behind the study of all this we are doing. So how and why, right? The study of something called public administration emerges. Do you understand what you mean by public administration, right? We'll take your intro later, not today. Fine. First let us get integrated into the process, how we teach, how we learn, right? First you should know that. So let us do it for 1 or 2 days, then we'll ask you what is your name, right? What is your qualification? Those things are very formal. So let's say you've heard of the term public administration, right? You've seen syllabus somewhere. What is interesting about this subject? It was the most dominant subject. It is still one of the most sought after subjects, right? But yes, let's say 2012 to 2017, there was a phase when this subject was more or less being asked, right, in a particular manner, which maybe students felt was something shocking, or students felt was something like it was out of the syllabus. Have you seen the syllabus? Do you find it to be tough? Why? No, syllabus is not tough. When you see the question paper, then you may say tough. See, if you say anything in UPSC, will it not be tough? How can you say anything in UPSC will be easy? So this is a biasness that you carry, right? Anything that you will do, you see in the prelims paper, is it easy? 99.9% people don't qualify prelims. So that should be the toughest part. See, at least once you enter into qualify the prelims, you can qualify mains more easily. Success ratio is higher. Fine, but for prelims it is not. So can you say prelims is easy? No? Easy means what? See, something is a pattern that you have been studying, right? Something is a pattern that you are studying. and something is which you have not till now you followed as a format. So as you see a new format, right? Again, like I said, you don't know, you cannot control it, so you feel fear. But exactly when you start studying, you will realize that, okay, there is nothing so extraordinary about it, right? Anything that you start studying initially seems to be tough. So public administration is one subject, see, which from 2012 to 2017, people would say, right, tough, we are not getting marks. It was not true. People got marks in that, yes. Why? What happened? When we have one subject, earlier there were two optionals, if you know, till 2010-11, right? And then optional was in prelims also. So it was mandatory for the people to take optional. You understand? Obviously, which optional would be more preferred? Which has more sync with the exam? So a lot of people, right, used to take public administration mainly because why? It was a new subject. Most of the humanities are very old. UPSC exam is totally biased towards humanities. If one electrical engineer becomes a topper, right, it's not a trend. If somebody from mathematics get good marks, right, so there will be not many. There may be few in the top list, right, but not many. Not many people will take physics and qualify UPSC, chemistry and qualify UPSC, geology and qualify UPSC. Why? Because those subjects, even though there are number of aspirants quite less, people get selected, right, but those subjects do not have the essence of the exam. Entire exam, if you see, is totally humanities based. You have to write an essay, right? See, what is scientific about it? Writing the essay. See, anybody who understands knowledge can definitely write the essay, right? But if you're saying a person from mathematics background and a person from public administration background or history background, who can write better essay? Both can write. But who will have better content to write it? The person with the humanities background. You see the nature of general studies paper? So till 2010-11, they used to ask a portion called statistics in general studies, right? 40 marks. So what people say that engineers are getting benefit in CSAT, same people used to say then also, that engineers are getting benefit in that statistics part. But it is not so. See, only 40 marks in the entire GS paper was coming from statistics. In prelims, around 20 questions from mathematics or aptitude. So nature of this exam has always been, right, oriented towards humanities. Why? Because the kind of work that you have to perform, that is called a generalist work. So civil services, entire nature of examination is generalist based. And one of the subjects which satisfies this need is public administration. So if you say 2012 to 17, if you meet people and they'll say, it is not like that. The only problem was that in this phase, rather than just directly picking up the question from the syllabus, they started asking some indirect questions. And like I said, when you read a book, most of the content seems to be more direct, right? But when a question is designed in such a manner that it is not asking you the same thing directly but indirectly, then your creativity or your opinion comes into picture. For example, if I give you an essay, write about AI and its implication, will you be able to write? You'll be able to write, right? But if I say, what are the ethical implications of using AI, especially for gender development, will you be able to write easily? Now, this is what UPSC does. See? So you cannot say it is tough. It is only the way you have been reading things. The moment you change the way you are looking at things, that very moment your understanding improves, right? So see, same with public administration. Now, it is a subject which is very simple. Only thing required is changing the point of view. Like you say, if there is a boy, let's take one simple example, right? Our classes always have a lot of practical example. This is how you can understand public administration very easily. That is a subject which you can correlate with every day what is happening in the world. Let's say there is a boy, right? He's going on a road and he gets slapped by a girl. So all the boys don't take it offensively, right? But let's say he gets slapped by the girl. Now there are several observers, right? The boy's mother is standing on one corner. The girl's mother is standing on another corner. The boy's friends are standing somewhere, right? There are some passers-by who are standing there, right? Now there are 4 observers to this situation. What will be the observation or conclusion of all these 4? Can you tell me? What will be the perspective of the mother towards her son? What will be the perspective? Now he's been slapped by someone. What will be her perspective? My son is Shravan Kumar. My son is Ram. Okay, that is the mistake. Now she has a perspective, no? She has a perspective. See, she will not accept, right? Maybe whatever has happened. See? Now, the girl's mother. Now she is watching this. She probably will say, okay, yes, she did the right thing. This is correct. Whatever. Friends of the boy, they knew him properly. They said he deserves it, right? Some passerby. See, 4 observers, 4 conclusions. Which is correct? See, this is the problem with humanities. If you write any humanities answer, somebody will say you could have added these 2 names, right? Someone else will say, why did you not add this line? Somebody would say, come, you write the conclusion in this manner, write a way forward, don't write a conclusion. Some will say, why you did not bring current census into this, current economic survey? See, these are all possibilities. There is no absolute answer. These are all possibilities. If anybody, you come to me, you come to someone else, right? So you go to someone else, he'll say, no, this, he did not teach this, add this. So everybody will have something to add to it. Why? Because whenever we are studying humanities, right, we all view this content, this knowledge from our own point of view. And when we are writing an answer to a question where there is no definite answer, we do not know 2 + 2 is 4, then what do? We try to bring our best perspective into the answer. See? So how can we bring our best perspective into the answer? When we are aware of more and more perspectives. If you're aware of only less perspectives, right, our answer writing or point of view of writing the answer would be very limited in nature. That is why even in humanities, understanding concept is very important. If you have conceptual clarity, you can mold the same knowledge, right, interlink it with other areas and write it. All of you might have studied, you've studied general studies. Okay, Ankur, I'll definitely answer that, don't worry. You've studied GS, you've started studying or you've studied? Started studying, right? So what are you studying? In general, what are you studying? Economics, okay. Polity, Constitution, most of you like reading all that, no? It seems that everybody knows it, right? See, Constitution makers spent 2 years, right? 11 months and some days, 18 days. And you say, I know, I like him. So people like Ambedkar and a lot of who read 2,500 books, right? Almost every constitution that was existent in the world at that point of time. And he used to work 19 hours a day. And see, everybody says, I know polity, I know constitution. Imagine. That means whatever effort they put, they were nobody. Huh? You were more smart and intelligent than them. So if you think of constitution, right? Let's take one example. So see how public administration is, the nature which is distinct from other subjects, which makes it so easy. It makes it so relevant all the time. Let us say, you know what is a constitution, right? All of you know? All of you know what is a constitution, right? What is a constitution then? Right? Huh? Let's say you ask me, what is a constitution? I will say it's a book. Is it wrong answer? It's not a wrong answer. It's a book. It's a document, right? Anybody, can you deny it is not a document? It's a document, right? Now, this is the first aspect of understanding Constitution. What is it? It's a document. And so is a government file, that is also a document. So is your report card, that is also a document, right? What is the difference between this document and those documents? You'll understand, don't worry, right? It takes time. You're into UPSC process. You'll start enjoying it, see, after a point of time. The moment you realize that it was so simple, the only thing was I was not observing it that way. That's the only difference. See, why this document is different from other documents? Correct, yes. It is universal, right? What else? You say it is the fundamental law. This document defines every other document, right? It's a document of the documents. It's the super document. Every document is a subset of this documents. So if I say, okay, Constitution is a document, but how it is different from others, it has specific characteristics. What is the characteristic now? Now you can define it in a multiple manner, multiple perspectives. If I say Constitution is the law, is it correct? Correct. Constitution is document, right? It is also law. Then, Constitution is the symbol of sovereignty of this country, correct? You understand sovereignty? It's a symbol of sovereignty, right? Constitution is a symbol or is a repository of aspirations of people, correct? Is it correct? It talks about the values, the norms, the principles through which the Indian society should be governed. Constitution reflects the historical aspirations of people, correct? See, you've taken one word, Constitution, and you've tried to interpret in many ways. This is what knowledge is, as simple as that. So if you develop the ability to understand that, okay, this is a syllabus, the syllabus is giving me some specific content, and this content now has to be understood, not just in one aspect, but multiple aspects. So as you keep adding more layer to it, right, your probability of writing good answer increases. And the examiner's red pen, red remark reduces automatically. And that's the difference between, right, knowing information and understanding the concept. That's the only difference. So let's say you get 250 marks, right, and you get 290. That is the difference. 2 marks in every answer, every question, right? That's a difference. It's not a big difference. You don't need to read too much for that, right? Only thing is that you have to redesign your answer. So see, expression, understanding, and obviously knowing the facts and information, that is also very vital. Without that, you cannot write anything. But how to use those facts, okay, that is very important. So see, most of the content that you study in any subject, especially when you say public administration, you do not just accept it at face value, right? You go to some 2-3 layers below that. And then when you understand it, right, you can write a very good answer. And this is where you can understand most of the questions. So please don't say it is tough, right? It is only evolved. It is not tough. And why it is evolving, see? So public administration is a subject which is the reflection of social developments that are happening around us. So student has asked me, what is difference between Sir ProdEgy and governance, right? So first let me explain what is ProdEgy, then we'll talk about governance. So public administration is an optional. It was introduced in 1987, right? Let's see. We'll try to know some facts today, right? So public administration as an optional, introduced in 1987. Why this is interesting, right? Almost 100 years later, or 100 years before this, the father of public administration, Woodrow Wilson. This person is credited to be the father of public administration, right? We are not very clear what does that exactly mean, father of subject, right? But anybody who obviously initiated the study of the subject could be called as father. So Woodrow Wilson, who was also the president of USA, And during the First World War, or after the First World War, Wilson's 14 points of peace became world peace became very popular, right? So he was the person who wrote an essay in 1887, right? And exactly, you see, 1987, this subject was introduced in India, right? I'm not saying, obviously, it was based on this idea, but see, it was a coincidence. So this optional was introduced quite late, right? And this optional reflected the dynamic elements of the society. So the reason for introduction of this optional was, see, what is the unique aspect? None of the universities, right, in India in 1954, 1955, for the first time, the study of public administration started in an organized form. There was an American, what you can say, expert and advisor called Paul Appleby. He came to India, right, on the request of Jawaharlal Nehru. And he was the person who was responsible for bringing certain administrative reforms in India. If you know where is ITO in Delhi, right? Police headquarters are also there. Near that, there is something called IIPA, Indian Institute of Public Administration. That IIPA is the Research and Development Center for Administrative Reforms in India. You will be appointed, if you become a civil servant, you will be appointed there, right? Maybe as a director or DG, whatever. So that IIPA was established by Paul Appleby. And from then on, you'll see 1954. The organized study of public administration started in India. Right? So see, this subject was introduced mainly to deal with something called the difficulties of governing. You understand? Whenever government is governing the society, it will face a lot of problems. It will face a lot of issues. How to solve those problems? So if you know that this building is not erect, you can modify it, right? If you know this road is not good, you can modify it. But if you say, right, this policy is not good, or policy is good, but people have not accepted, then what will you do? You'll change the policy. Is it so easy? If you have to discard an old book and buy a new book, it'll take time, no? Imagine you have to discard an old policy which was made over a long period of time with lot of investment, and you discard it and you take a new policy. Can you do it so easily? Let's say you don't like the present system of governing. Will you eliminate it and create a new system? What will happen in that transition? In between, what will happen? The government has to run. The society has to run. See? So when you have something called administrative problems, let's say, for example, you want to construct a bridge somewhere, right? And you have identified a location or a place where there are a lot of tribal population residing. Now you want to remove these people, only then you can make the bridge. These people, can they be removed through some formula? They cannot be, no? Will you use a formula to remove them, or you will have to do some exercise? You'll have to understand these people. Is there a ready-made formula for that? Then what will you do? You want to be an administrator, what will you do? So there must be some knowledge which will help you understand that if we have to go for development, right, and if people are resisting the development, then what should we do? So there must be someone to tell us, okay, these are the 5, 6 alternatives that you can follow. That is what public administration tells us. So whenever we are facing a problem in governing, whenever we are facing a problem in administration, there is a need for a subject which helps us understand this. So public administration was actually created as an area of study, mainly to deal with administrative problems of the society. How administrators can be made to understand, to deal with the challenges they are facing every day. That is the core focus of this subject. But this requires a very practical understanding, right? See, this subject was introduced and it became very popular. Why? There is no historical baggage of this subject. Now see, most of the universities were not teaching this subject. So you don't have generally BA or master's program in this subject, except like IGNOU you have. Few universities today do it, right? So there was technically no competition. Everybody who was taking public administration, right, was a fresh person. If you study political science, for example, or sociology or any other subject, right, you will have a lot of graduates and postgraduates there. They will be your competitors. So let's say an engineer wants to study humanities, right? And he enters into a subject where there are a lot of PhD holders and gold medalists, and likewise, he will face a lot of competition. So see, public administration somewhere simplified this idea. Okay, fine. Everybody will start from zero. And it is not a subject which obviously requires some academic background. So that was very clear. It's like clean slate for everyone. Everybody will start from zero. Second, majority of the knowledge in this subject, like I said, was practical. If you're looking outside, if you're a person who is curious about government and politics, right, he can understand things more easily. You just need a simple curiosity. You don't need any defined knowledge. So there was no need for expertise in the study of this subject. Everything was highly common sense based, generalized. Third, you can also say plus point or minus point, right? Most of the people were not in this, coming from this background, right? So whoever the examiners were, they were also not coming from the public administration background. So evaluation parameters were quite liberal in nature. So see, 87 to almost 2005, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, this subject dominated the entire UPSC. Even today, it's not that, see, if UPSC has to make a reform or change, ethics paper, what is it based on? Is it philosophy? No. Is it psychology? No. What is it? It's administrative ethics. As simple as that. So any reform that will be done will be somewhere centered around, or at least will be in the neighborhood of public administration. Second ARC, you know about second ARC? They have recommended for reforms, right, in public administration or civil services. So they have recommended for a reform that why don't you create a National Institute of Public Governance, NIPG, or National Institute of Public Administration, and ask students who want to appear for UPSC, right, to get into this NIPA, National Institute of Public Administration, get a certificate from there, and only then apply for UPSC. It's not happening in your time. It may happen later, right? But that is a good recommendation, that anybody who wants to prepare for UPSC must first acquire a degree from National Institute of Public Administration and then apply for UPSC. So see, most of the reforms have focused that make public administration study mandatory. It should be compulsory. Anybody who wants to do administration at least must have basic understanding of administration. But yes, a lot of things you learn only while you do administration. You cannot just read theory and learn administration. Fine. But let's come back, see. So this subject was introduced and it became very popular. It is more practical oriented. So there is nothing complicated. What is complicated is just that you have to change the way you are looking at things. So let's say what this subject. Now let us start simply by knowing about this subject, right? So we'll start with first basic term, public, right? We'll talk about syllabus, don't worry. We'll talk about references, how we are going to deal with this subject, right? But first, let us simply understand what is the area that you're going to study. You use the word public administration. What do you mean by this word public? It comprises of two words, public and administration, right? Or the origin of the term is public, right? Or publicus, Latin. What does it mean? Okay, what does it mean?
It is concerned with the large number of people rather than group of people.
Okay. Anybody wants? You want tea? No, after the class you can have. No. Thank you. So, sorry, I have a bad throat. So public or public means what? Group of people? Correct, related to government. But see, literal meaning is what? See, I'll tell you one simple word. There is a term called etymology. Have you heard of this too? What does it mean?
It is the origin of the
Correct. Origin or source, right? Any word that we create, it has an origin, right? It has a source. A lot of Indian words have come into Oxford Dictionary. You know about it? A lot of Desi Indian terms have now been found place in the Oxford University, Oxford Dictionary. And many of the international scholars are using those terms now. You know about them? No. See the word jugaad, a temporary arrangement. The Great Indian Jugaad, the book. You've not heard about this? It's a very famous book. How Indians, see, because it is a big mystery that how India as a society with so much of diversity and such lawless people, right? How is this society running? How society is growing? See, it's a very famous book. You Google it once you go back, you will find out. So very famous book, The Great Indian Jugaad, written by one of these scholars. He wanted to find out exactly how this country is running. There are so many diversity in this, right? Naipaul, V.S. Naipaul, his name you've heard, right? Now, Naipaul has written a book. He's a Nobel Prize winner. Naipaul has written a book, right? Indian, but stayed in South Africa, right? He has written a book, India, A Million Mutinies Now. In that book, he is basically talking about the idea, right? That how is it possible with a country with such contradictions, right? It is still existing and growing. It's a mystery to many of the Western scholars. Okay? Let's come back. So, see, the word etymology somewhere helps us understand why a particular term is used, right? And what is the basic idea behind this term. So whenever we are using a term, a vocabulary, right, there is some basic perception, there is some basic understanding behind that term that we are using. So word is not carrying the literal meaning, it is also carrying the hidden meaning behind it. So etymology helps us understand. Let's say public or publicus. So you say people or government, right? But generally the meaning of this is what? Something common. Public, common. When you say public, right, you mean to what? You need to say something which is collective or common. So that is the literal understanding of this term, collective. What is collective? Collective interest? No, we can have collective interest. We can have collective assets. We can have collective resources, right? We can have, see. So this word public simply means collective. What collective? This collective can be translated into something called society. Anything which relates to social interest, anything which relates to collective or our interest together, that is called public. Common, collective, everyone's public. Who is going to look after this interest? Who? Who will serve this collective interest, common interest? Who will serve this? Who will? Just now we started with government. The government is the system which is going to serve us. So it said, well, there is something called collective, right? Or community, or everyone's universal interest. Who is going to serve this? So can we say this may also mean a system, right, which represents this collective? A family is a collective system, right? Society is a collective system. Fine. How it is represented? It is represented through a state. Now this brings us now into the domain of study. Collective, common, universal, social interest to serve by what? Something called state. So what is state? State is the collective, or state is the system which represents the collective. You understand? To which normally you use the word common sense term state ka kya hai? You say it's, though state is not same as government, right? But let us assume for some time that this is the government. So this part typically talks about collective interest to be served by a system called government. Now how and what to do of this interest? Will this interest be served by a system, right? So administration word indicates how collective interest will be served. Serving the collective interest in the society. So administration word comes from the word administrare, that's Latin word, right? Which means this means to serve collective interest. So the word administrare comes from the Latin word, administration comes from the Latin word, which means to serve what? To serve the society. So public administration what? The system to serve the collective interest of the society. As simple as that. That's a system. But system is working under what? Government. See? So you can say it's a government system serving the collective needs of the society. As simple as that. First, have you understood this much? Right? What is that government system now? That's important. Right? So government will create a system, right, which will serve the needs of the society. What is that system? That system also is called public administration. See? The system created by the government to serve the needs of the society is called public administration. So one aspect of this study is the system that serves the need, right? The other aspect of this study, what is this system or what this system looks like? So if there is a system, fine, that system also needs to look like something. It needs to be visible as something, right? You understand? If there is a system, right, what does it look like? If there is a parliament, what does it look like? You have to know that or not? Or you simply know that a parliament is that it makes law. Do you need to know how it functions? What is its design? What is its procedures which it follows? So the study of public administration revolves on, first thing, how the collective interests of the society is served. Second, who serves this system? Right? Third, what does this system look like? That's the third aspect of study. So what do you call this system? This system generally is called as bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is a term which defines the system which is created by the government to serve the society. Bureaucracy. So see, bureau means what? You want to be bureaucrats? So you should know at least what is bureaucracy. Bureau is an office, right? An office which is headed by a single individual. So if there is an office, right, a big office, but its boss is a single head, right? The head of the department is a single person who controls everything, right? That is called a bureau. Office headed by a single person. Why single? Why we are using the word single person? It means centralized. All power ends at this person. All power gets accumulated into this person. So when you say secretary to the government of India, he is the head, right? And all the power of the system flows into him. So he controls everything now. So any system, right, or any organization which has a single head at the center. He centralizes all the power, he makes all the decisions, and he is a person who is appointed by recruitment, by conducting an examination. He is not contested an election. So we call bureaucrat as what? A non-elected, right, head of department. So any system which is governed by officials, who are officials? Who are not elected. They are recruited by an examination. So these officials control, or these people, right, who manage offices controlled by a single person and who performs function on behalf of the government, that is called bureaucracy. So bureau word means office, headed by a single person. Cracy means rule. That means an office where a single person or a head rules the office or implements the policies and programs or laws of the government. That is called bureaucracy. So public administration term can also be simply interpreted as bureaucracy. Fine, we'll talk in detail about it, don't worry. This is just for your understanding. So word public administration talks about collective interest of the society to be served by a system. The system is called bureaucracy. There are many people who have studied this idea, right? So a lot of detail will go into that, but that is not the purpose today. So see, you study that. Now, how and when this subject become an area of interest? When we started studying them, right? Now, if you say public administration is a system which performs this function, right? Then somebody wanted to study it. If somebody wanted to study it, can we say public administration also became a subject? But it is a system, but somebody started studying it and it created this into a subject. So can we say public administration also means an area of study? So now it is a system, it is also an area of study. This means now there are two meanings of the word public administration. Two meanings, right? Third meaning. So it is an area of study, right? Why will people, like we have already talked about why will study. Let's say, who would have thought of studying this? When did we start studying this? Any idea you have? Can you accept that when people started, or when we were nomads, then also we had to perform some functions to survive, right? Some functions were to be performed to survive. How did we decide these functions? You have to hunt a deer. How did you decide it? How did you organize this hunt? But there was no law. We were nomads. Correct. But see, there would be some logic on which we will be developing, that we have to hunt the deer. We have to kill the deer, right? How we are going to distribute it? Will there be some rule? Let's not say law. Fine, but there will be some common, acceptance that this will be the standard. Every society had some organized form, right? Organized form of procedure to govern themselves. Every society. From nomadic society to farming community to later on organized, every society had some form, if not developed, but some form of system, right, to govern themselves. Even nomads. So administration, that is performing certain functions to protect the interest of everyone, right? Administration would be existent even when we never knew about administration, right? Do you agree with this? So administration as a function, performing certain things, right, to manage our resources or to serve certain interest. This would have been existed always. There's a scholar called Nicholas Henry, right? His book is very popular. He says, bureaucracy or administration is in our bones. He means to say that every human civilization that is no more there, that is buried somewhere, right, will always indicate the presence of some administrative system. For example, Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. Did they not have administrative systems? They had administrative systems. Even when we did not know that we have to study administration, then also we were performing the function called administration. So is it something new? No. Since the emergence of human civilization, the administration as a function has always been performed, right? But when did we start studying it? That is very important. Who would have thought that let's study what happens, how we do things, how we can improve, right? Have you heard about 𝗘𝗿𝗃? Let's say in Indian context, 323 BC, somewhere, right? 326 to 150 BC. The assumption is that during this phase, a lot of content was written, right, by as much as around 13 scholars who collectively were called as 𝗘𝗿𝗃. So 𝗘𝗿𝗃 was not a single person. There were a lot of people who contributed to this, right? But ultimately the book was in the name of 𝗘𝗿𝗃. So was this 𝗘𝗿𝗃 a single person, or there were so many scholars who contributed to it? So that book 𝗢𝗃𝗃, which was written, can you say that book is one of the earliest attempt by someone to write a book on public administration? What is 𝗢𝗃𝗃 about? Why are you so serious? Am I talking about Kejriwal? You don't have to be so serious. We are not in a mortuary. It's a classroom. Humor creates dopamine. Dopamine creates happiness. Happiness creates more inspiration to learn. As simple as that. Right? If you're over serious, then you'll keep telling everyone your problems all the time. That person will also get frustrated. So if you go and tell people, I've started preparing for UPSC, it is so tough, it is so common, right? That's your journey. You have decided it, right? Why are you creating problem for others? So something, that decision you have taken, you should be very happy about it, right? So as you start learning, you'll enjoy it, right? If you don't want to learn, obviously you want to impose something on yourself. That is your will then. So be little happy, it doesn't matter, right? What is 𝗢𝗃𝗃 about? See, the word earth is material. Shastra is knowledge, right? Or science. So if I take it literally, it will be material or economic science, right? That's a simple meaning. But what does economics do? Economics is the basis of any development, right? Now what 𝗘𝗿𝗃 says, earth can have two earth, right? Earth can have two earth. What is that? One is material and one is the earth itself, meaning. Understand? See, that's common sense. 𝗢𝗃𝗃. Earth itself means meaning. And earth means material. See? So what a king's primary duty is, he is talking about a system of government that is called monarchy. What is the primary function of a king? Is to pursue material wealth. Why? So that he can keep his subjects happy. As simple as that. Now he says, to achieve economic wealth, to achieve economic growth, to achieve wealth, or to extend empire, to acquire resources, what king has to do? He has to fight wars. He has to organize army. Right? He has to learn a lot of tricks. He has to learn a lot of manipulations. He needs to know how to govern and how to fight. Right? That is 𝗢𝗃𝗃. So how a king should be able to govern, right, and use this power to extend his territories and resources so that he can create more material wealth for his people. That is 𝗢𝗃𝗃. So we call it a book on statecraft, politics, right? But primarily, what is the purpose there? The purpose is the wealth economic distribution of resources by the people in power. So that book is not just a book on statecraft. That book is a book on political economy. You understand the term political economy? This is the most dominant area of study today. Your economic survey, budget, whatever comes, all has been designed or all has been focused on something called political economy. What is political economy? See, we understand each and every term we use. Right? So obviously when you study, you'll realize that it is not just public administration. Anything that you read related to UPSC, whether it is editorial, whether it is governance, whether it is ethics, whether it is polity, whatever, you'll find a remarkable change in your understanding if you are with this subject. It has a remarkable influence, right? Your answer writing, your skill, your speaking, vocabulary, everything will change. But it will take time. Tell me.
Making decisions like how to distribute the resources.
Political economy, correct. How power is necessary to distribute the resource in the society. You see, India is growing, right? Let's take simple examples. See, India is growing. You agree with this? So you are a Modi fan. You're a BJP supporter. No, you can be. You're free to do that. At least don't support AAP. That's okay. Fine. You support anyone after that, that's better. So let's say India is growing, right? Let's not support anyone. Let's support the economy. So let's say India is growing. What is the GDP growth rate right now? 7 to 8%. Peak. Between 7 to 8%, right? You understand what is GDP? All of you? Is it clear? But what is GDP? That is clear to you. It is a measure of economic growth, gross domestic product, correct? Right. So that is, it's a measure of economic growth. Now you say India is growing, right? So can you say everybody in this country is growing? No, that is not true. India is growing, but everybody in this country is not growing, right? So what does India is growing mean? It's just a number, right? It's just a number. So if there is economic growth, that growth has to be distributed. Who will distribute? The people in power by making the policy, right? So how the government or the state can make effective policies to distribute economic resources? Political economy. As simple as that. That is what 𝗖𝗿𝗁 was talking about. So 𝗖𝗿𝗁 wrote that book 𝗪θशास्त्र, 323, 324 BC, right? And that can be considered as one of the first attempt to write a book on administration or state politics administration. But he was writing about monarchy. Today we don't have monarchy. Manu, have you heard of Manu Smriti? The son of 𝗖𝗿𝗁𝗺, the sun god. Manu in Indian, right? Traditional social context is considered to be one of the first law giver, Manu. Even though he's criticized, one of the most criticized person on this planet, at least in India. Because Manu is supposed to be the initiator of the caste system, right? Or the Jati Varna system. So Manu Smriti can also be considered as one of the first textbooks which concerned with creating a social order, right? A pattern of governing or managing society. So he is considered the first lawgiver, even though whatever controversy will be there. So Manu Smriti or 𝗪θશાસ્ત્ર, or let's take, we talk about Mahabharata. Even though they may be myths, right? We are not very clear. But let's say we have something, a book called Gita, somebody might have written it. Not necessarily coming from the God's mouth, but somebody might have written it, interpreted whatever is there. So let's say, in Mahabharata, there is one portion, right? That portion is dedicated to the Yudhishthir having a dialogue, right? Or having a talk about morality of governance. How morally and ethically we should govern. What are the duties of a king? What are the moral principles that he must follow? That is called Shanti Parv. It's one of the ending, you can say, chapters of Mahabharata or end books of the Mahabharata. Shanti Parv, it talks about how or what duties, moral duties the kings have and how they should be governing, right? What or how ethical decisions can be made by the kings or the people in power. It's an entire debate about that. What he did wrong, right? What decisions he took, and like we see, Shanti Parv of Mahabharata. Now that is one of the first textbooks, if we take it as textbook, one of the first textbook which talks about how or what are the duties of a ruler towards his subjects. So Manusmriti, Arthashastra, Shanti Parv, and likewise Akbar, supposed to be one of the great kings. You agree with that? You should agree. When history says he was a good king, yes, compared to so many others, right? So Abul Fazl, the court writer of Akbar, right? He writes a book, the 𝗖𝗍-Akbari, basically autobiography or biography, sorry, of Akbar, right? In that he has given a lot of account of Mughal administration of that time. Even prior to that, we were just talking about Arthashastra. That was the reign of Chandragupta Maurya. And one of the writers, right, Megasthenes, who wrote a travelogue called Indica, whose accounts are not clear, right? And that is why we cannot confirm that there was a fight between the Sikandar, Alexander, and the Porus. We cannot confirm that. Near the river Oxus, which is the present Jhelum, right? So we cannot confirm it. But yes, there was reference to the book Indica, which mentioned about it. And likewise, see, so throughout the history, if we go back in time, we'll find that some or the other text was always written to at least help us understand what was the governance or what was the governing system in that particular era. But most of these writings, right, they were related to that era only. They could not be applied to the later era. See? So whether it was this book, that book, that book, let's come later on. So later on also many of the accounts were written. I'm talking about Indian context. Now go to the rest of the world. In Western context also, there were immensely extraordinary writers who have written about government and politics. For example, Plato. Plato has written a book called Republic, right? In that book, he talks about something called philosopher king. You understand a philosopher king? He has been compared, or he is compared with Kautilya's king. Kautilya uses a term Rajarshi for the king, Raja and Rishi. The one who has the nature of being a king and also the nature of being an ascetic, a sage. Sadhu and king at the same time. The one who sacrifices, who is altruistic, philanthropic, and the one who controls and exercises power at the same time. So Plato's book Republic, right, it gives a reference to something called philosopher king. And it talks about, okay, how a king or a person in power should be highly sacrificial in nature. He can sacrifice all his happiness and comfort for the peoples. Now, Aristotle, comparative politics in government. One of the first writers to talk about comparative politics. That means he compared different political systems. And eventually he came with, in the support of something called benevolent monarchy, a monarchical system where the king is sensitive to the interest of people or subjects. Socrates, right? It is still debatable whether he was actually there or not. But okay. So let's say they have also written a lot of textbooks, especially a person called Machiavelli. You heard of Machiavelli? 16th century somewhere, right? So Machiavelli has written a book called The Prince. You will know about it once you reach Labasna. Right? In 𝗣𝗏𝗁, they have a lot of focus on Arthashastra and the prince. So Machiavelli wrote a book. He was an Italian writer, philosopher, political analyst, you can say. So he wrote a book called The Prince. The prince can literally be translated as what? The one who governs, right? Or one who rules, or one who is going to rule. That is the meaning of prince. So in his book Prince, he talks about a system of governing which is based on extreme control through power. Somewhat similar to 𝗏𝗿𝗄𝗧, though 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗧 seems to be more mild. Machiavelli seems to be very dominant in his analysis. He says the king has to control the system. The king has to control the society. It doesn't matter. Whatever means he has to use, he has to achieve the stability of the society. That is the famous statement given by Machiavelli. The ends justifies the means. If you have studied ethics, you will understand. Ends justifies the means. So Machiavelli said, it doesn't matter how we arrive at this end, right? We have to achieve what we have to achieve. So whatever manipulation of means you have to do, you do it. What matters is the end. It's like saying, I have to qualify the exam, 𝗖𝗪𝗁𝗀𝗃𝗃, I have to qualify the exam anyhow. That is what she might have thought of, no? Bad example, right? But still, she set a bad example. But still, she did what she had to say. So Machiavelli supports such ideas. He says, power needs to control the society, it doesn't matter. So whenever state or government is functioning, its primary purpose is what? To protect the society, to protect the state, and even for that, if it has to control the society, it should. Can you correlate this idea to any provision in Indian Constitution? Let's see where common sense is actually not very common, but still. Emergency. In emergency, what state does? It centralizes the power to itself. This is what PubAd is. See, it is not at all tough. It's the simplest subject. The only thing is that you should be able to link, as simple as that. That makes it very interesting, right? Rather than making it boring. What are the factors impacting the society? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? At least PubAd or public administration type of subject, at least it requires your some innovation and creativity. If you polish yourself better, you can outdo others more easily. You don't have to mug up, all of you don't have to mug up the same thing and go and write in the exam. That's the beauty of public administration. So it gives you a lot of liberty, right? 25-30% of the liberty to interpret and put your own ideas into it. Right? So let's say, fine, every book that was written somewhere, it was focused on how the state can manage the society, right? And somewhere fulfill the needs of the society. But see, most of them focused on what? Controlling the society. These books that were written mostly were in the context of traditional systems called monarchy. You know who is a monarch? No, I'll not bore you much today, huh? But who is a monarch? Correct, right? A ruler who is controlling the system. Well, how does some become a monarch? If you want today, can you become a monarch? Let's say you have some extraordinary qualities, right? Like 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃 goes and picks up Chandragupta Maurya. Just by looking at him, he was playing, right? And he saw certain qualities and he said, oh, let me make him the king. If you do it today, right, will there be somebody to pick you up and say, he's co-prime minister? Maybe if you keep selling tea on the railway station, then somebody will pick you up and say, okay, this is the person. Fine, he makes fabulous tea. Let's go down. Right? Because I've seen a lot of chai wala, but abhi UPSC chai wala is still left, no? MBA, BCA, MCA, BTech, everyone is there, BCom. But I think UPSC chai wala is still left, right? So there is still scope for entrepreneurship, right? Well, let's say. So, will that happen? It will not happen, right? Will somebody will pick you today and say, okay, you can be made this, you can be made this. If you want to become a monarch today, you cannot. Why? Even if there are monarchies, right? Japan, symbolic monarchy, Bhutan, symbolic monarchy, right? Converting into democracy, again going back to monarchy, fine. Or let us say the Queen of England, right? Being the symbolic head of Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, and shit like this. So there are many countries in the world who are symbolic monarchy, but they are not real monarchies. Still very difficult to do it. So see, these books were written in the era when the traditional form of government was monarchy and people accepted those systems. So see, any government or any political system that emerges in a society in an era is based on, to a major aspect, based on the acceptance of the people. Why people accepted it? Because they were dominated by tradition, religion, culture, and so many factors. So obviously they accepted a king. That who is king? The king is the what you can say, the representative of the divine, the God. Right? This is called divine theory of state. The king is the symbol or government, right, who has been appointed by the God. So idea is simple, that monarchies worked, they functioned, and they remained as the most dominant form of government, right? Unless we reach somewhere around, let's say, 13th or 12th century AD. What happened there? Now see, obviously in Europe, there were a lot of changes happening. These changes did not happen obviously in our countries. We were still grappling with the Sultanate period, if you know, right? Ilbari Turk tribes, Sultanate period, which was controlling us, governing us, right? Razia Sultan. Razia Sultan was one of the famous, right? Iltutmish, right? Kutubuddin Abak, Kutub Minar Banadi. So that was the dynasty going on. Mamluk dynasty, we call it. Fine. So see, so we were not witnessing that changes, but Europe was witnessing a lot of change. Europe had monarchy, right? And it was mostly exploitative monarchy. The kings were autocratic, highly controlling, dominating. But see, it witnessed certain changes. In 1215 AD, in UK, right, the something known as the Magna Carta. You know about it? What is it? So in 1215 AD, in UK, they brought something called the Magna Carta. Magna Carta is the Bill of Rights, or what today you call as Bill of Rights, right? It was like a charter of rights. See how the modern studies start. So this was Charter of Rights. It was like a compilation of rights which the king gave to the subjects. You understand? Are you able to understand? This is simple logic. The king gave certain rights to the subjects, which is very typical because we are using the word subjects. Who are the people in a monarchy? They are subjects. Subjects mean dependent, simple as that. So rights given to subjects. Will subjects, why rights will be given to subjects? Technically, there is no concept of rights, right? There are concept of certain kinds of benefit which the king can give, but it is the privilege of the king what he will decide. Now, if he gives a charter of rights, right, you can say it is like a detail of rights available to people. What is happening? What are they doing? They are trying to create or reduce the dominance of monarch and give more freedom to the people. See? So when this Magna Carta comes, right, or if you see somewhere 1530s, the Treaty of Westphalia. What was Treaty of Westphalia? 30 years war. 30 years war in Europe basically comes to an end, right? Basically, what was the purpose or what was the impact of this war ending? Was the emergence of something called city-states. City-states means obviously there were wars, there were kings, there were royals fighting amongst themselves. For what? Territory, resources, right? Now, after this Treaty of Westphalia, after 30 years of war in Europe, it was decided amongst many small royalties which were there. They were also called fiefdoms, if you've understood, if you've heard this term somewhere, right? Not a kingdom, fiefdom, right? Led by a courageous person, right, who basically governs a territory. So there were so many small territories, and they were always fighting to extend their territories. Now, through this Treaty of Westphalia, it was recognized that no, everybody who owns a territory, whatever territory you have, now that is yours. Nobody will now fight for extending his or her territory. No encroachment of territory of other by or one by the other. It will not happen now. So they recognize something called the sovereign rights of the people in that territory. See, it was the first time that we feel the emergence, or we find the emergence of the concept of sovereign state. Understand? Nation state. We use the word nation state today. Emergence of nation state concept in the modern world. So this happened, right? Obviously, like I said, obviously many people were contributing to the study of government and politics. This somewhere laid the foundation for the emergence of democracy. It is also called the Greek city-states. Athens or Athenian democracy. See, it started all this. So from here on, now see, most of the text books that were written, obviously they were not somewhere universal. They were more related to a specific kingdom, to a specific context, right? But hereafter, you'll see a lot of content coming up, right, regarding what is a democracy and what is a monarchy. See, there started an urge to prefer democracy over monarchy. Why? Because in democracy, people changed. The status of the people changed from subjects to citizens. From subjects to citizens, this changed. And when you are a citizen, right, you obviously have more rights, much more rights and liberty compared to a subject. So see, this 16th century now saw the change and the emergence of the modern democracies. And that is why if you want to become a monarch now, it will not be acceptable. Why? People have changed. Their sensibility has changed. Their acceptance has changed. And why did it happen? It primarily happened, obviously later on you have French Revolution and you have industrial development. So see, when we look at this change, it made a great impact on the change of the human civilization. Industrialization, right, and French Revolution. So it brought scientific temper, scientific change, reasoning, rationality, logic, it brought into this perspective. And so people started looking for such systems which would be more logical today. So what did industrialization do? It created the opportunity for emergence of democracy. It created the opportunity for rationality, logic, scientific understanding. People started questioning the domination of tradition, religion, and all those things. So any textbook or modern content that you want to understand, from where the influence on public administration starts, right? That generally starts somewhere after this. So it is basically the 17th or 18th century, right, where we see the emergence of some content right, related to modern study of public administration. You've understood this logic? So there were two major sources if you want to understand. One is the Western source, other is the non-Western source. In the Western source, we find the emergence of this knowledge mostly related to the emergence of democracy. So 18th century or 19th century Europe witnessed again lot of changes, right? Because of the decline of monarchy and emergence of democracy. And in this phase, lot of content was written. Same. This phase also saw the emergence of USA, America, right, as a strong nation. Why strong nation, America? In your GS paper, there is a topic called, GS paper 2, there is a topic called comparative political systems. So many times questions are asked in UPSC. What is the difference between nature of democracy in US and nature of democracy in India? What is the difference? Both are democracies. Largest, biggest, we use these phrases more or less. So what is the difference between them and us? That is presidential, we are parliamentary. If you know about it, if you don't know, it's okay, leave it. But let's say, how did they acquire their freedom? Through war. How did we acquire our freedom? Through discussion and bargain, right? See the major difference. Americans fought a war to get that freedom. We went into bargain and discussion to get that freedom. Understand why? Most of the Western world always believed that these Asian or South Asian states that do not have the will to fight. Why? Because that is there in their culture. We talk about world peace, we talk about all those things. No, that's the idea. Non-violence. That's the basic premise that we follow. But not always good, right? But it's okay. That non-violence does not simply mean that there is no violence. It talks about unnecessary violence should not be there. Fine. But let's say, so we are having a different type of culture, they are having a different type of culture. That is why you'll find that social revolutions, social revolts and protests are very easy there, not here. You aggregate people, right? Abhi UPSC protest hua. It remained for some time, right? It was legitimate, obviously. Students need to be protected. But see, is it not just students? It is anybody who is associated with this ecosystem needs to be protected. If there were not students, there would be some people running a library. There would be some administrative officials. There would be some employees. Anybody would be there. See? Failure of governance. It's not just failure of coaching, it's a failure of governance. And obviously the person who owns it should also be conscious. How can you allow the library to run when there is a lot of rainfall? And you are seeing it last 10 years, right? Those areas get flooded. So it's common sense. How sensitive you are, that is why it's important, right? But let's say, so wherever you'll talk about the inherent nature of people, right? Or the rights people want, also depends upon how the political systems were created, right? But let's not get into that discussion. Let's simplify. So subjects become citizens. The king's domination is transformed, changed, eliminated, right, into a democratic system. So what is this change? If I want to use a term for this change, right, I can say change from lex to lex rex. King is law. See, to law is king. See? King is law to. Now see, the importance of public administration emerges here now, the study. When the people right, become empowered. So from king is law. Whatever king wanted, he could do. Whatever king wanted, he could decide. See, to the law is king. Now we move towards something called rule of law. This is a very important concept. So when we are moving towards something called rule of law and not rule of king, when we are making a transition from rule of law towards rule of law from the rule of king, right? This transformation is called democracy. This transformation is called what? The rule of law system. So when law becomes primary and not a person, see, a person's domination is reduced. Understand? Law's domination is created. What is the law? It's a neutral system which works equally for everyone. King, on the other hand, is a person who is influenced by some personal desires, discretion, arbitrariness. He wants to do something that he wants to do, right? He may not do in the general interest of the people. So logic is, see, rule of law and not rule of king. When the idea of rule of law becomes dominant, then we see the emergence of modern political and administrative systems. So it's not that under monarchy there is no administration, but it is not an administration that we desire. So all the modern administrative systems emerge when? When the political systems transform from monarchy to democracy. And that is where the study of public administration actually emerges. So in that context, you can say it was 19th century Europe, right? And US. Slowly, where you see lot of content or lot of studies started in public administration, or you can say organized study. Whether it was Germans, French, British, right? Or Italian or Americans. All in the 19th century, beginning of the 19th century, right? Or later half of the 18th century, they started writing certain content and knowledge regarding called public administration. It was the phase when modern democracies were emerging and every country was somewhere trying to develop a strong and stable administrative system. If you've heard about Napoleon II, especially Napoleon was not a person, it was a title, right? Then Garibaldi, have you heard his name? Who is called the Iron Man of Germany? So see, Germans, Italians, French, what they were doing? They were developing very strong administrative systems. Bismarck's name, have you heard? Bismarck, father of modern Germany, right? Also known as the Iron Man of Germany. So Bismarck, Garibaldi, or Napoleon, or others you'll find, they were the pioneers. They were leading the strong administrative systems in these countries. And their primary purpose was how to make government system or administrative system so strong that whatever happens, right? Whatever happens, the government can come and go. Right? The administrative system should remain stable. They believed that a society can only progress, it can be protected when we have a strong administrative system. Political systems may change, but administrative systems should not change. They believe that way, that a strong administration can always overcome the drawbacks of politics, right? The problems of societies. So they started studying it. They started developing knowledge on that. And there were very scholars who contributed to it. One of the first textbooks written in 1812, right? Administration des Publics in French. So that is considered to be one of the first textbooks. We'll write everything, don't worry. I'll tell you how the format will work. Today you just understand. So they, that was one of the first textbook written. But that textbook was again, like I said, was more relevant to European society. If you see, that is also the phase when the three or the East India companies started venturing into the other territories. So one of the primary purpose of strong administrative system of Europeans was how they can control and access rest of the world. So they believed if there's a strong administrative system, they can do anything. An organized, efficient, rational administration system can do anything. It can conquer lands, it can control them. See, imagine British Isle, it's a small territory, controlling almost 1/3 of the world. How is it possible? A small country. Now that was the idea, that it had one of the most developed, organized, disciplined administrative systems. So that was the urge, and they started developing knowledge. But that knowledge, like I said, was more in the nature of exploitation, colonization, control. Though in their own countries, they were doing something good. But in other countries, they were not doing something good. So they were developing administrative systems and its knowledge, especially to control and colonize other territories. On the other hand, America had become independent, USA. It started making its constitution somewhere 1787. If you know about it, right? American Constitution developed, or later on becomes the Constitution of USA, United States of America. Starting with Constitution of America to Constitution of United States of America. So Americans started making their constitution. Americans started developing a democracy. Now that became more relevant to study. So Americans also started understanding or studying how to develop a political system and how to create a democracy and an administrative system. So see, there were a lot of things to be learned from American Constitution. When they started developing their constitution, many scholars started contributing to them. Now that also became one important reference or source of knowledge regarding modern democracy. So Americans, Europeans, we are not taking them together, Westerners, right? Because Europeans had a different approach towards governing and America had a different approach towards governing. So these two became the major source of knowledge of public administration. But you'll see that till 1900 or late, you can say 1880s, it was believed that administration is what? It is just a system which supports the political system. Just like I said, it is the government which creates a system. So till that time, it was considered that administration is what, or public administration is what? It is just a means used by the government. For example, you use this pen, which will write a good answer, this pen or you? Who will write a better answer? Who has the ability to write a good answer? The pen or the you? Anyone by online? Digital zamana bhi to. Pen. No, we. If you have the ideas but no pen, then what will happen? Actually, let's say the word has no pen now. Then what? See, that means there is importance of this pen. But what is this pen? It is secondary to your ideas. You basically are primary and this is secondary. So when you are primary, right, you are called the owner and this is the agent. You understand? There's a term called owner and its agent. Or you are the ones who decide. This is the one which does. So what you decide, it does. You understand? It is not independent. It is dependent on you. Understand? And that is how public administration as a system was viewed. It was said that public administration is not an independent system. It is a system used by the government to govern. So what public administration will do? What the government will say. So imagine if something is treated as secondary system, nobody wants to study it independently. People say, it's okay, study politics and government. Public administration is just one part of that. ये तो नौकर है, इसको क्यों पढ़ना? You understand? Nobody gave that importance to independent study of public administration. They felt it is just a means. It is just an instrument. You understand? An instrument is one which you use to achieve something. So this remote is an instrument, right? Which can be used by the one who controls it. See? Remote control, you can say that way. But whose hand is that? Government. So it was like, what is public administration? Remote control. What we want, we'll do, right? But who controls it? Government. So it was never studied independently. It was believed to be, right, a part, just of a small part of the government. For example, you're studying a car, right? Do you study the tires separately from the car? You don't find the importance or utility of that, right? You feel a tire is just one part of it. Same way. Most of these scholars focused on political science, politics, government, legislature, parliament, executive, president, democracy, prime minister. They studied this, right? But when it said bureaucrats, secretaries, administrators, they said, oh, they're just, right? They're just pawns, they're just puppets in the hands of government. Inko kya padna alag se, inko rakho side mein. One chapter dedicated to them. See? But this idea changed. There came few people, right, in Europe also and in America. That person was Woodrow Wilson. And then in Europe, right, Lawrence von Stein, Bluntschli, there were certain scholars, right, who said, see, why do you have to make administration, right, a subsidiary part of the government? Why do you have to view administration in such a manner? Administration is a very vital function of the society. So he said, if government makes policies, government decide, then there is someone who does. If that someone who doesn't do it, right, whatever decision you make is useless. You make timetables every day. You might have just started making timetables, right? You just reached ORN, no? Or you're here since long time. Not long means not historically long, right? But maybe from, let's say, a few months you are here, right? So you have started making the timetable. First day you made timetable, decorated it, right? Glitter, pen, color, all that you did. Then once you realize that in 1 week you have not followed the timetable, then what you did? You might have changed the timetable. So earlier you would have started with somewhere 20 hours, 18 hours every day, right? Then it will become 20 hours a week. So from 20 hours a day, it becomes eventually 20 hours a week, and then maybe 20 hours a month. After the class, 20 hours a month. Fine. For some, it is 20 hours a year. That's a different aspect. 99% are that only. Right? If you meet them, they will have all the ideas in the world. Ye book, ye notes, ye teacher, what they will have all the, but they have not qualified the exam, but they have all the information. Right? So they are ChatGPT version ORM, right? So they will give you all the information, but they are not qualified. Because they did not work on that in finding out what problem they have. They were already finding problems with others, right? So they did not get time to find problems with themselves. But let us see. You make a timetable, you change it. You make a timetable, you change it, right? Eventually, whatever you decide, if you don't do it, right? Is there any benefit of that decision? Nothing. Everything that you decide but you don't do it merely remains an intention and not an action. Understand? So if I say, if politics and government is the intention, right, is the willpower, is the will, then what is administration? Is the action for that will. So there were scholars who brought this idea that, oh, see, what is public administration? It's an action. If you just decide but you don't do, right, there is nothing you can change in the society. So now certain scholars brought this perspective, a new idea. And people started giving attention now to administration, that, oh, this is very important. It's an important function to be performed. Till now, we never thought about it, right? If it is so important, why don't we study it? See? So Woodrow Wilson, his essay written in 1887 becomes one of the landmark, right? Or you can say one of the foundational developments in the study of public administration. And from there on, you can say an organized study of PubAd started. There were various type of dimensions which people explored, like they do of every subject. But you can say, yes, around late or 1880s, around you'll find the developments in the field of public administration. Later on, this idea was carried forward by many scholars. But you can say it was the Wilson who created the identity card, the visiting card for public administration. Right? Obviously, what he studied, what he did, that's a later aspect. So you see, the modern study of public administration as a subject generally starts when we see the emergence of democracies and rule of law. Otherwise, there has always been the study of public administration. Fine. Now that comes to the idea. So we have studied administration since long time. We have done administration, I don't know, since the time we were born, right? But to study it, to develop into an organized area of study, right? That somewhere happens in later 19th century. Have you understood this? So see, so what is public administration? A system. What is public administration? A subject. And what is public administration? Function. What is public administration? Action part of the government. See. What is public administration? Instrument of the government. What is public administration? System fulfilling public interest. Now, you can keep adding a new layer to that. See, what are these? These are called different perspectives of public administration. The first part of your syllabus, meaning of public administration. This is the meaning of public administration. Now, there can be multiple meanings of public administration. So, someone says, okay, I am studying PubAd. Subject. A bureaucrat says, what do? I do public administration. See, somebody performing the function, right? So, or if I ask a civil servant, where do you work? He says, I work in a bureaucratic organization called Ministry of Home, for example. See, system, right? So, functions, people, right? So, we can have public administrators. We will have function called public administration. We'll have a system called public administration, and we'll have a subject called public administration, right? If I just mix all this together, and then I say, what is the primary role or primary purpose of doing all this? Is to understand how to govern better and serve the public interest. See? So can we agree that ultimate purpose of all this is what? To achieve the goals of public interest, society's interest. That is the ultimate goal. No study of public administration would be complete if we are not able to maximize the public interest. So politicians, they decide, make policies. Public administrators, they implement. So if they are well equipped, if they are trained, if they are capable, right, the implementation will become better. That is why you have to study and then think of qualifying the exam. You simply cannot think of qualifying the exam by watching the reels and the motivational videos. That can create the minimum marks, fine, but then after a few hours that will go down. So there are a lot of students, right, who watch motivational videos to be motivated, and then they watch again motivational videos, so to be motivated to watch the motivational videos. And then after 1 year, they realize that now they have been completely motivated. Then they start studying. And when they actually start studying, then they realize that there is no motivation to study. So see, your motivation will come from your inner drive, how much willpower, how much, what you can say, affection you have towards your goal, how much willing you are to achieve this goal. See, the exam is not at all complicated. We make it complicated, right, by overthinking, over logic. We feel that if we amass all the information in the world, if I look at all the content and lectures of the world, then I will become capable of qualifying the exam which is not true. Why? Because you will become more informed, but you will not become more capable. See, there's a difference between being informed and being capable. A capable is one who knows how to utilize this information to the best of my purpose. That is a capable. A person who knows all the information, right, but doesn't know what is the use of this information, that is something a waste of your ability. So see, majority of the students, they focus on amassing information which is not very relevant for UPSC. In general studies, you can do that. In optional, it's not. Because optional requires a depth of knowledge, right, and not unnecessarily facts. There are certain areas where facts will be needed. There are certain areas where concepts will be. See, this you have understood. Now, let's say